Nowadays, it feels like you need to go into exile with the Freddy Fazbear monks and dedicate your entire life to the sacred text to get even a glimpse into understanding the FNAF timeline. I mean, friend of the channel Hyperdroid made a 24-hour video going over every single piece of information surrounding the FNAF games. If I'm not mistaken, that video holds the record for the longest ever scripted YouTube video. Don't fact check me. The point is, Five Nights at Freddy's has gained a bit of a reputation for being convoluted, confusing, complicated, complex. So much so that the average internet user will take one look at an 8-hour video about the basics of the FNAF timeline.
Oh, that's real nice.
And go do something else with their time. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if there was a way to lay out all the pieces for the entire FNAF timeline, spanning both old and new content, while simultaneously explaining where those pieces come from, why they matter, and how they fit in? Well, you're on the right video, my friend, because the FNAF lore really isn't that complicated, and I can prove it. I'll assume you have a base level knowledge of Five Nights at Freddy's and what it's about, but for the one person watching this who doesn't, I'll lay out the basics anyway. The first FNAF game is set in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, sometime in the late 20th century. In it, you play as a night guard called Mike Schmidt, who must defend himself from 5 animatronics possessed by the souls of dead kids. That's the premise. Sounds simple enough, right?
Bunch of the other animatronics all rolled into one entity. This is especially important when you consider that a key reveal from the final FNAF novel, The Fourth Closet, is that William Afton created the living sister location Funtime animatronics by extracting remnant from the melted conglomeration of all the OG animatronics and injecting the new robots with it. Thus, all the new robots were alive and sharing a piece of the same set of souls, just like if the pieces of Baby/Enter had been repurposed to form Happy Frog and
Then, how did we get here? The first 3 FNAF games have pretty simple lore, as I covered in my video about the history of FNAF theorizing, which you should totally watch after this one. But when Scott Cawthon, the creator of the franchise, realized millions of people actually liked his games, he knew he had to flesh out the story more and more. This is why FNAF 4 and Sister Location, the next mainline installments after the original trilogy, feels so much more complicated than their predecessors. After those games came the natural continuation of the franchise. Cawthon released Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night, 2 final send-offs to the core franchise, and stopped making games, focusing instead on writing the story for the modern era of Five Nights at Freddy's, from the first VR game, Help Wanted, all the way to Secret of the Mimic. Over time, a lot has changed. But what pieces are there for us? Where can we find them? And how do we assemble this puzzle? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna lay out the groundwork for every game in the franchise in release order, explain the things we learned from them, and some of the reasoning behind where they fit in the timeline. All with evidence, of course. What I'm gonna be doing is basically workshopping a FNAF timeline in real time, and laying out all my thoughts and the basics of the lore in front of you in a new, unprecedented way. Obviously, it's impossible to cover every single intricacy of the lore in under 30 minutes. I'd need at least 10 hours for that. But trust me, this will go over everything relevant to the main lore. We'll be using every piece of evidence possible in as little time possible. So without further ado, let's speedrun the FNAF lore. Going back to FNAF 1, the premise itself is pretty simple, but there are some things that we need to focus on. Firstly, Mike Schmidt, our night guard, is someone worth remembering, as he'll be relevant later. Phone Guy, this game's tutorial character, also drops some interesting tidbits about important events in Freddy Fazbear's history, most notably the Bite of 87, and the missing children incident. The Bite of 87 was an incident where an unknown animatronic bit off a person's frontal lobe, and even though the victim survived, they were changed forever. Phone Guy himself doesn't mention the missing kids we learn about from the newspapers, but he's fully aware that something is off about the pizzeria and its animatronics. Hard not to be, considering this is what they look like. And of course, the most notorious detail from FNAF 1 is Golden Freddy. This character had a 1 in 32,000 chance of appearing, materializing in your office and killing you if you didn't look away in time. No one knew what he was, but it seemed he was the 5th victim of the missing children incident. Of course, this isn't the last we'll see of him. FNAF 1 likely takes place in 1993, as we can use the paycheck at the end of the game to deduce the exact date using minimum wage payments at the time. Overall, FNAF 1, pretty simple. But as we'll see, and as I'm sure you already know, the rest isn't as straightforward. FNAF 2 takes place in 1987. We know this thanks to the paycheck we get at the end of the game. The infamous By the VD7 mentioned in the first game also happened shortly after the events of the Night Guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald's night shifts. This is because it's never mentioned during the core gameplay, and Phone Guy, who also appears in this game, mentions a final birthday party, presumably where the bite happened. This game introduces the brand new toy animatronics, the marionette, and the battered withered animatronics, who date back to a previous location in the early 80s. These are not the characters after FNAF 1. FNAF 2 also sported a custom night mode where we played as a weird, unexplained character called Fritz Smith, who ends up getting fired for the same reasons as Mike in FNAF 1. We'll get back to this in a bit. FNAF 2 had a particularly notable addition that would become a major trend for the franchise: creepy Atari-styled minigames that can rarely be played after dying. The death minigames in this one give a bit of context about the possession of the original animatronics, the origins of the new cast of toy characters, the puppet, and the mysterious fifth dead kid, by introducing the series' antagonist, the Purple Guy. This is where the FNAF games started utilizing minigames to tell their story. We'll see this used in all the games up until Ultimate Custom Night. FNAF 2 made it pretty clear that the Purple Guy was responsible for the deaths of the original kids who possessed the first animatronics, and the 5 who possessed the toys, while the puppet was what led to these animatronics becoming possessed. There were also some special cutscenes that played in between nights, showing the point of view of Freddy Fazbear coming to terms with his possession, as the puppet and the elusive Golden Freddy looked on. Speaking of Golden Freddy, he appeared in this game too, although with a distinctly different appearance, more similar to Withered Freddy. He also showed up in some of the minigames, teleporting around randomly, and confirming that he was the 5th victim of the murder that happened at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Overall, FNAF 2 cements itself as being in the mid-80s in 1987, but before FNAF 1. FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors. We have good reason to assume FNAF 1 takes place in 1993 for reasons I already explained, and that the incident that led to the original dead kids possessing the animatronics happened in 1985. We learned about this date from the Silver Eyes, the first ever FNAF novel, that came out right after FNAF 3. I won't get into the books in detail in this video as I want to keep this games only, but Scott has gone on record to say that the novels can and should be used for clues about the game's continuity. So FNAF 3 is either in 2015 or 2023. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. It's at the tail end of the timeline. I'll personally place it at 2023 for simplicity's sake, but either way, it works perfectly fine. Oh, also, the Purple Guy is revealed to be in the yellow Bonnie suit as Springtrap for the 8-bit minigame shown in-game, and he's clearly been rotting in there for a while. This yellow suit is actually a Springlock suit, as told to us by a recording of Phone Guy found inside the building. These suits have the ability to swap between mascot costume and animatronic when using a hand crank, and we see the 2 original Springlocks, Spring Bonnie and Fredbear, in the Stage of 1 minigame hidden inside FNAF 3. Speaking of minigames, FNAF 3 was the first FNAF game to include multiple endings. If you play all the secret minigames hidden throughout the game, you can free the souls from the animatronics, and get the best ending possible. But as the games went on, this ending likely became non-canon, with the bad ending instead being the correct option. FNAF 3 is pretty simple, and doesn't boast any lore-breaking information. However, using the information we gained from it and the Silver Eyes, we can place the missing children incident around 1985, clarifying a pretty big mystery in the timeline up until now. But now, on to FNAF 4. FNAF 4 is messy. The end of night minigames, without a shadow of a doubt, happen in 1983. It's on the TV in the player character's room, it's been mentioned in books and other official content, and it just makes sense. The nights, however, are a bit confusing, but there's something that can help us out. The FNAF 4 nights are obviously nightmares that the protagonist is having, so everything we see here comes from memories and the player's subconscious. That's why the animatronics in this one are literally called the Nightmares. One of the rare Easter eggs you can encounter while playing FNAF 4 is a reversed audio of a man talking. Unreversing the sound reveals it's actually the Phone Guy from FNAF 1, meaning whoever is having this nightmare had to have worked at the FNAF 1 location. We got confirmation from Scott Coffin himself that every Easter egg in FNAF 4 was intentional, firmly placing FNAF 4's nights from FNAF 1 onwards. Even though the minigames take place in 1983, they answer more than just that, and also raise a few more questions. In them, the crying child is being tormented by his older brother, who we'll call Foxy Bro. Over the course of several nights, crying child goes to Fredbear's family diner, a location nearby his home, and encounters the animatronics from the restaurant, and the purple guy himself, all while being talked to by his imaginary friend, psychic friend Fredbear. At the end of the minigames, Crying Child dies in an accident known as the Bite of 83, or the Big Bite, where Foxy Bro and his friends dress as Fazbear characters to prank him. His brother apologizes for what he did, and the Fredbear plush appears to Crying Child, promising to undo the damage done to him. The Freddy Fazbear plushies are still his friends. But did he believe that? There was only one thing left to do now. Put him back together. But how? Well, maybe we'll see in the future. FNAF 4 has other problems outside the timeline placement, but it contains one of the earliest events in the timeline that sets up a majority of the story later on. This installment introduces major characters that we've seen before and have yet to meet, but we'll get there. Now, it's time to move forward. It's time to enter Freddy Fazbear's forgotten second location. A sister location, if you will. The fifth mainline installment, FNAF Sister Location, is where it gets a bit overwhelming, and we're gonna have to slow down for this one. In Sister Location, the night guard, Mike, goes down to Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals, a branch of Fazbear Entertainment, to work as a security guard and maintenance worker. He meets the cast of Funtime animatronics, who reveal their goal is to escape the facility, using him. But the star of the show, Circus Baby, isn't just anyone. She's Mike's sister, Elizabeth, and he's been tasked by his father to go to the bunker and save her. But instead, she tricks him, combines all the Funtimes into one amalgamation of wires, Ennard, and removes Michael's organs, using him as a literal skin suit. Roll credits. This game is our first proper introduction to the Afton family. William, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment and CEO of Circus Baby's Pizza World and Afton Robotics, is the purple guy who killed the original 5 dead kids, and his children are Michael, his eldest son, Elizabeth, his youngest daughter, and finally, the Crying Child from FNAF 4. I don't think I need to explain what leads people to believe the Crying Child is the middle Afton child. It just makes sense, it's been fed to us by Scott through the books and games, and hasn't been debunked in the 9 years it's been a theory. Scott Coffin clearly wants us to know it's true, to make that connection. Crying Child's death is the motive for Michael's work as a night guard at the various Freddy's locations. Yes, Michael, Mike from Sister Location, Mike Schmidt, the FNAF 3 night guard, and possibly Fritz Smith from FNAF 2 are all the same person. Michael Afton. His motivation is, at first, to do his father's bidding, going to check out the possessed animatronics for his studies, and then to free his brother. But we'll get into the intricacies of that plotline later. For a really long time now, the community has believed that Sister Location happens before FNAF 2, or before 1987. Not everyone likes this. The tech of the Funtime animatronics this game introduces is just way too intricate. The timeline is weird, things happen too early, William is missing, and Mike, the player character who is very important later on, becomes a rotten corpse. How can this guy get a job again? There's really only one piece of evidence to suggest Sister Location happens before 1987. The termination slips at the end of the FNAF Custom Nights. These slips say that one of the reasons the night guards from FNAF 1 and 2 are fired is due to odor. Mike Schmidt shares the name with Mike from Sister Location, who becomes a zombie at the end of that game. So he'd probably smell a bit. Using that logic, the reason odor is listed as a reason on the pink slips is due to Mike being a corpse. If you think about it, this actually doesn't make much sense. Firstly, we need to remember that when these first 2 games were released, the odor comment was likely meant as a joke. Scott fully believed that those max mode custom nights were impossible, so the whole point of these paychecks is to show the player is, to put it simply, a sweat. But that's not all. There's actually a reason why tampering with the animatronics in particular is coupled with odor. The animatronics canonically reek.
If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years and I never got a bath, I'd probably be a bit irritable at night too. By now I'm sure you've noticed the older models sitting in the back room. Those are from the previous location and we just use them for parts now. The idea at first was to repair them. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology, but they were just so ugly, you know? And the smell.
Obviously, these things have dead bodies inside them, so the night guards tampering with their AI would lead to them smelling of decay. But anyway, these custom nights aren't canon, so they're not the biggest issue at hand. There's also the fact that in FNAF 1's death screen, Mike's eyes are blue, while the minigames after Sister Location, where he rots away while being warned by Ennard, show his eyes becoming black. Before Ennard, Mike's eyes in Sister Location are blue. As well as that, by the time Mike finds his way into Circus Babies, he's told that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has been closed for a while now. While this is likely referring to the original one closed after the first kids went missing, It also connects to the FNAF 1 location, and how that one was the last of its kind. I'll get more into the real evidence as to why sister location is almost definitely after FNAF 1 in my Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator segment, but for now, I want to take a look at the characters and lore introduced to us in this game. Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals isn't just a rental facility, and the Funtime animatronics aren't just made for entertainment. It's a testing lab built by William Afton. You see, the original 5 dead kids weren't what caused William to find out about possession. There were several deaths before that. The death of his own son, the crying child, and that of Charlotte Emily, his co-worker Henry Emily's daughter. Fazbear Entertainment was founded by William Afton and Henry Emily in the early 1970s, and they worked together to create Fredbear's Family Diner and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But eventually, something caused William to lash out and kill Henry's daughter Charlotte. This is all information derived from the novels up until sister location, by the way. Charlotte is the child from the FNAF 2 minigames showing the origins of the puppet. She possessed that character and goes on to save the kids by letting them possess their respective animatronics. Anyway, back on track. These incidents made William certain that something was going on, so he used his technological prowess to create the Funtimes, designed to capture children at birthday parties to experiment on and test the nature of possession. We see that Afton orchestrates experiments similar to the FNAF 4 nightmares from his underground bunker, meaning the FNAF 4 player, who is definitely Michael Afton, was likely placed in those experiments against his own will by his father. Regardless, the end result was that the Funtimes were possessed. But it wasn't without consequences. William's daughter Elizabeth fell victim to Circus Baby, which led to the closure of the first Circus Baby's location and the opening of the rental facility. William, enraged by his failure, decided to take matters into his own hands. The Funtimes, while accurate and highly powerful, weren't practical enough. Plus, Henry needed to be knocked down a peg. While Circus Babies failed, Freddy Fazbear's grew without stopping. So on one fateful night, June 26, 1985, William went to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and killed the 5 kids who possessed the classic characters. I know what you're thinking. What do you mean Elizabeth died before the missing children? But trust me, it clicks. In the intro cutscene of Sister Location, Afton is clearly held in high esteem when he opens Circus Babies. He is in a meeting with Afton Robotics board members and is a successful businessman when the location starts up. One of the teasers in the build-up to Sister Location shows us that he was a pretty public figure and a successful and respected entrepreneur in the area. However, after the 5 kids go missing, Afton is the first suspect. In the novels, he's forced to go into exile outside town, and in the games, it's the same. After that happens, he goes missing, only appearing at Freddy's at night later on in FNAF 2 to kill the final set of kids, and finally in the ruined FNAF 1 location where he becomes Springtrap. Simply put, Afton wouldn't be able to create a location as big as Circus Babies if the public hated him. As well as that, in the final novel of the Silver Eyes trilogy, The Fourth Closet, which is a retelling of Sister Location, Elizabeth's death happens before the original missing children incident. Afton's entire motive for doing it in those books is to recreate the accident. This is a bit annoying as it makes the Funtimes appear a bit too early in the timeline, but apart from what I said, there's quite a few reasons as to why this makes sense. I won't get into it in full, but in this timeline, Elizabeth's death goes before the MCI, in 1985, and the gameplay of Sister Location goes after FNAF 1 but before FNAF 3. The exact year isn't really a big deal, I'll play it safe and place it in 1995. A couple years after FNAF 1. After Sister Location, Michael, now turned into a hollow skin suit by Ennard, is worn by the amalgamation for a few days before being discarded. But he doesn't die. Instead, he's revived by the power of the souls inside Ennard, the very life essence his father William Afton was experimenting with. After this, in Sister Location's final cutscene, Michael vows to find William and confront him for his sins. This leads directly into the gameplay of FNAF 3, with Michael going to that game's horror attraction and trying to destroy William, who now goes as Springtrap. Mike is the one who sets the fire in the location, but Springtrap survives, going on to fight another day. Now, it's time for the final installment of the first arc of Five Nights at Freddy's, FNAF 6, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Put simply, FNAF 6 is the last-ditch effort to end everything. Right now, 4 remains of Freddy Fazbear's past are scattered across the area where it all happened. Springtrap, the twisted remains of the Fazbear co-founder, Scrap Baby, a recreated Circus Baby that Elizabeth formed herself into after Sister Location, Molten Freddy, the rest of the Funtime animatronics, and the puppet, still wandering the world with the sole intent of catching Afton and making him pay for his transgressions. I want to focus on Molten Freddy for a bit. Remember those minigames from FNAF 3 where William gets spring-locked in his yellow bunny suit? Well, pay attention to what he's doing in these minigames. He isn't just disassembling the animatronics, he's extracting their endoskeletons, and William is taking them to a very specific place. His bunker. That's right, in experimenting on the souls of his victims, Afton used the possessed animatronics in his tests, injecting them into the fun times. This is why they're so unstable. Why they say things like, "You don't know what we've been through" in Sister Location's teasers. The fun times are obviously paranormal, but it isn't just any combination of souls. It's the souls that first went into Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy, now combined into this unholy entity. The fourth closet literally shows us that this is what's happening, and coupled with an Easter egg from the first FNAF VR game showing FNAF 1 endoskeletons in the furnace in the bunker, it all makes sense. This also means Sister Location has to be after FNAF 1, since that's the only way William Afton can extract the endoskeletons. My point is that these four characters are the culmination of every tragedy tied to this story. Enter Henry Emily. After Freddy Fazbear slowly failed after the murders William committed there, he went into hiding as well, only reappearing around 30 years later to put an end to everything. We see from the tapes Henry recorded in FNAF 6 that he has access to blueprints of the Fazbear characters, and knows what his partner William did in the bunker. Using William's knowledge of souls, he concludes the only way to purge all that remained of Freddy's was fire. During the gameplay of FNAF 6, the player gathers all the remaining characters into one building, a fake Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and Henry burns everything down. William Afton, Elizabeth Afton, the player himself, Michael Afton, the countless victims of William combined into Molten Freddy, and finally, Henry's own daughter, Charlotte, the one he couldn't save, the one who tried to save the others. As the smoke rises up, the legacy of Fazbear Entertainment sizzles away, the nightmare gone forever. But while the pain and agony of Freddy's was gone, the memory definitely wasn't. The truth is, the reason that horror attraction was opened, and why people even visited the fake Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the first place, was that the deaths had become something of an urban legend. People wanted more Freddy's, more tragedy, more spooky campfire stories. And someone, lurking in the shadows, was absolutely ready to deliver. Meanwhile, William wasn't really dead. While the other souls found their peace and followed the light, someone was very determined to make him suffer. Ultimate Custom Night is William Afton's personal hell, forced to battle the animatronics he created for eternity, unable to escape. All because of Golden Freddy, the one he shouldn't have killed. No matter how many times he cried for help, how many times he defeated the hordes of animatronics going after him, he would never leave. He would never rest. And so concludes the first half of our story. But it doesn't end here. While that was the first arc of the series, the second half holds an equally fascinating story. After Pizzeria Simulator, FNAF went pretty quiet. Sure, we had the first series of short storybooks, Fazbear Frights, but those are non-canon, and we don't have to worry about them. Thank God. What we do need to focus on is the next mainline game in the franchise, Help Wanted. Now, a theme you'll notice in these newer games is that they're actually not as complicated as their predecessors. Help Wanted's story is fairly simple. Sometime after FNAF 6, someone buys Fazbear Entertainment, and in order to get people to forget about the tragedies at Freddy's, pays a quote-unquote rogue indie game dev to make video games out of them in order to promote the brand and make light of the company's crimes. So yes, there's an in-universe series of FNAF games very similar to ours, but that doesn't mean the first 6 games aren't canon. It just means that the in-universe public thinks the stuff in those games didn't actually happen. Those original games are 100% canon and relevant to the story. It's just that we have similar games inside the timeline that help explain how the company came back from the ashes. Literally. Anyway, part of this revival scheme is the Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience. This is a combination of minigames intended to be pushed out to the public, but is still in beta testing when we, the player, experience it, as they make extra clear.
You acknowledge that Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters, nightmares, night terrors, night sweats.
Throughout the game, you notice several odd glitches like the appearance of a weird digital bunny mascot, Glitchtrap, Listening to the hidden tapes scattered across the game reveals the truth of what this character is. Fazbear ordered the dev team to scan some old circuit boards into the VR game, and after that event, the bunny started appearing in-game. Tape Girl, the character recording these tapes, figures out a plan to trap Glitchtrap inside a locked-off section of the game, but no matter what you do, Glitchtrap is victorious in every ending of Help Wanted, taking over the player and ending the virtual experience. Next up, FNAF 8. Oh, never mind. It's dead. Next up, Security Breach. The best FNAF game of all time, infamously known for never having a single bug and also sporting an absolutely seamless and totally sensical story throughout. Security Breach is still in the process of being solved. Scott Cawthon himself said he didn't communicate the story of the game to Steelwool, which means stuff like Burn Trap, the Blob, the Sticky Note Room, etc. aren't accurate to his original vision. But that's fine. We can get into the basic story of the game and cover everything important it has for the story. In Security Breach, we play as Gregory, a kid trapped inside the Mega Pizzaplex, Fazbear Entertainment's latest and greatest location. Gregory's task is simple: escape. But why is everything after him? Who's controlling Vanessa and or Vanny? And why are the animatronics hostile? The answer is simple: Glitchtrap. Vanessa is the player character from Help Wanted. That game's DLC, Curse of Dreadbear, shows us a tape of Vanessa's voice, and her mask is hidden inside one of the levels. After playing the VR game, she became possessed by the Glitchtrap virus, and the animatronics in the Pizzaplex are also being controlled by the AI, as it made its way into the mall. The Pizzaplex is built on top of the ruins of the FNAF 6 location, meaning Gregory can go underground to explore the remains of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, and this is how you get the Burn Trap ending. Which, by the way, isn't actually the canon ending of Security Breach. Security Breach has tons of endings, the biggest number in any FNAF game in fact. But the most important one is by far the 3-star ending: Princess Quest. If Gregory plays through all 3 hidden Princess Quest arcades scattered throughout the Pizzaplex, he frees Vanessa from Vanny and the influence of Glitchtrap, and they escape the Pizzaplex. After Ruin, it's become pretty clear that this is a canon ending. Burn Trap is ancient history now, and probably won't make a major appearance ever again, due to not matching Scott's original vision for Security Breach. So, while the game has a lot of weird little lore details, the main story is that as Glitchtrap spread its influence, it took over the Pizzaplex and some of the people related to it. Gregory manages to break out of its control and free Vanessa, leading to a happy ending. You might think the next installment we have to cover is Ruin, but we're actually gonna go with Help Wanted 2. Ruin and Help Wanted 2 released just mere months apart, and it's honestly a lot simpler to cover the VR game first, because it's chronologically first in the timeline. I know, it's an exception to the rule we've had over the course of the video, but trust me, it'll make things a lot simpler. After the events of Security Breach, the Pizzaplex is hit by a massive earthquake, causing it to cave in. This sets up the event of the Ruin DLC, but it's not time for that to happen yet. First, a new character must step in. Oh yeah, we don't actually know his name. Well, we might. Back in Help Wanted, the tapes we collect reveal that Glitchtrap tried possessing an employee called Jeremy, who ended up removing the Vanny mask he was using, alongside parts of his face, with a guillotine paper slicer. The player character from Help Wanted 2 is likely the father of Cassie, the protagonist of Ruin, and also Jeremy from Help Wanted 1. But now, let's focus on what Help Wanted 2 tells us, which isn't a lot, actually. Help Wanted 2 is all about letting go. Throughout the game, the protagonist is slowly losing their mind, but is also helping the memories of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza be forgotten, by laying the memory of William Afton's victims to rest. The game has 2 endings, one you get for not fulfilling the secret storyline, and one if you free all the souls by collecting their respective memory dolls. But here's the interesting part. If you light the torches above the memory dolls in a specific order, a secret door opens up, revealing a Bonnie mask. The Bonnie mask from the bite of 83 all the way back in FNAF 4. The player character recognizes it too, noting that it looks familiar upon seeing it. We're playing as the Bonnie Bully, going back to Fazbear Entertainment to either atone for his childhood mistake, as he was directly involved with getting the crying child bit, or to do his best to forget his trauma. And so, Help Wanted 2 inevitably ends with the protagonist trapped in the virtual world, most likely ending up in a certain character from the Ruin DLC. So now, time for Ruin. Ruin is a very linear game, and thus not complicated. We play as Cassie, looking for her friend Gregory under the ruins of the Pizzaplex. Cassie's dad went missing a while ago when he went looking for something in the location, but never came back. Eventually, Cassie finds a staff bot who hands her a Vanny mask, enabling her to access the virtually augmented neural network integration. Basically, Cassie can use the cameras, tech, and more hidden in the Pizzaplex. Gregory tells her to deactivate the nodes scattered across the locations to free him. But when Cassie makes her way to hidden tunnels under the mall, she doesn't find Gregory. Instead, she finds a murderous animatronic known only as the Mimic. The Mimic feels like a completely random addition, and I'd be lying if I denied that it kind of is. But the next FNAF game after Ruin will help make it click. I can't say anything definitive about Ruin's ending because so far it's the latest installment in the franchise chronologically. So on that note, it's time to end it all at the very beginning. Secret of the Mimic. First off, let me just say this game has the best lore and storytelling of any FNAF game. It all clicks, it's meaningful, and it's actually well explained. Basically, the game is set in 1979 at Murray's Costume Manor. This is the very beginning of the timeline, so Fazbear Entertainment, while a fairly major company, is nowhere as big as it'll get in the future. Murray's Costume Manor and Fazbear Entertainment are partner companies. William Afton and Henry have already met at this point, and Fredbear's Family Diner, the first location, has been open for quite a while. Overall, it's all going good for the companies. Until the owner of Murray's Costume Manor, Edwin Murray Sr., unexpectedly dies. His son, Edwin Murray Jr., has to frantically take over the company. Edwin was an inventor married to a puppeteer called Fiona, with a son named David. Edwin's inventions never took off like he hoped they would, but a job with Fazbear Entertainment to conceptualize a new location called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was exactly what he needed, so he develops a prototype location to show to the Fazbear founders. But there's a problem. Edwin's wife Fiona and son David ended up dying during his work on the Fazbear project, and to cope, he remade them using Mimic, a shape-shifting endoskeleton he built for babysitting David. He uses Mimic to copy Fiona, and the new strand of code, M1, begs him to do the same for David, but Edwin is overwhelmed. While Henry is busy tampering with change orders, William is slowly stealing employees from the business, essentially tearing it apart from the inside. Edwin lashes out against the Mimic, now imbued with the memories of David, moves the M1 program to a new central server deep underground, and goes into hiding, but Mimic catches up with him. Thanks to him, it's learned violence. So the endoskeleton likely finishes off Edwin before returning to the factory, brutally dismembering any Fazbear employee trying to capture it. However, Arnold, the player character of the game, manages to grab its schematics, learn the truth about it, and escape. But on his way to Fazbear Entertainment headquarters, the Mimic catches up to him, steals the schematics, and leaves Arnold to die. M1, the code imitating Edwin's wife Fiona, actually reappears in Ruin. When Cassie deactivates the nodes I brought up earlier, she's stalked by a digital entity called Mexes, which she is forced to destroy at the end of the game. Well, Mexes is actually M1, trying to prevent the Mimic from escaping the Pizzaplex's underground. Just like Ruin, for this game, we suffer from not knowing the full story, so we need to wait for the next installment for more info. If you want to know more about the in-depth story of Secret of the Mimic, I recommend you watch my video on the subject after this one. So, with that, we've successfully gone over every single FNAF game. And honestly, it wasn't that bad, right? The timeline is pretty simple. First, Secret of the Mimic, then the FNAF 4 minigames in 1983, Crying Child gets bit around the same time as William kills Charlotte, eventually Babies opens and Elizabeth dies, then William kills the 5 missing kids, then FNAF 2 happens, FNAF 1, Sister Location, FNAF 3, FNAF 6, Help Wanted, Security Breach, Help Wanted 2, and finally, Ruin. There's absolutely a lot more intricacies to this. There's a lot of details that just can't be included for a shorter video like this one. But if you want to know more, I highly recommend playing the games for yourself and engaging in more theory content. The original games are fairly cheap and can run on literally anything, and they're a great way to get involved with the story. I think playing the games myself a while back was a great way to understand their respective stories better. Anyway, I hope you now understand that the FNAF lore really isn't complicated, at least not as complicated as some people make it out to be. The story is kind of intricate, yes, but the basic plot isn't all that bad. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I've rambled about the bear game for a while now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please consider liking and subscribing. As always, stay safe and keep on theorizing.